He's a commercial broker and developer based in Mission, Kansas. Upon graduation from St. Louis University, Kevin was commissioned in the U.S. Army and served until entering service with the Kansas National Guard infantry, and then he retired and left military service in 1999. Kevin in his profession concentrates on specialized real estate field of land brokerage, infill development opportunities, and industrial office properties. Although Kevin certainly loves the art of the deal of a business deal, his true passion lies in being actively involved in his community. He served on the board of directors for the Dream Factory of Greater Kansas City, is past chairman of the Wonder Scope Children's Museum of Kansas City, and as many of us know, he is past district governor of District 5710, and he currently serves as our district Rotary Foundation chair. One of Kevin's reasons for joining Rotary was his commitment to worldwide peace through understanding. To that end, Kevin is just one of a few hundred Rotarians internationally that serve as a cadre member, providing audit and technical assistance to the Rotary Foundation's global grant programs worldwide. He has participated in international missions to Panama, Kenya, Haiti, and multiple visits to Mexico. He's blessed with 3 daughters, Nicole, Lauren, and Megan, and dedicates most of his off-work time with them and his fabulous wife, Dawn, who has joined him here today. So with that, would you please join me in welcoming our Foundation Chair, Kevin Tubbesing.
I find it to be no particular surprise that Betty decided that this was the first day that she was going to bring a stop at this time clock. So we'll talk mechanics later, should y'all want to. But my task today is to maybe put you in a mindset, or maybe talk about the why with the foundation, because you have folks within your club that could probably talk about mechanics, what's a Paul Harris Fellow, what's a Quest Society, et cetera, et cetera. We can get into all that. And quite frankly, there are maybe even some questions within the club about how our grant systems work and all that I'd be happy to talk to you about. But let's talk about a little bit of why. What I want to start off with is I want you to put yourself in a mindset. I want you to think about being a mother and a father in a small, medium-sized town in Germany. Town of 100,000 people, relatively first world nation, of course, good healthcare systems, good jobs. Mom works, dad works, kids are happy, everybody's gone through their life, to this date, and all's just fine and dandy. One of the decisions, of course, that the parents made way back when was that their kids were immunized against various diseases that exist, mumps and measles and stuff like that. But one of the things they decided that they really didn't need to anymore, because Germany didn't have polio, is we're not going to worry about doing the polio vaccine. Well, imagine turning on the news and seeing that there's a whole bunch of people landing on this island in Greece and trying to get across the water. Some of them have made it actually over to various shores of Hungary and are kind of moving up, and then your government announces, bring it on, let's go. We need some more folks who are willing to settle a lot of folks into this country, so we're going to go ahead and open up the trains. We're going to bring all these refugees that are fleeing Syria and the conflict. We're going to let them settle throughout Germany, get jobs, and become acclimated into their society. You imagine the terror when they remember that last year there were 5 instances of polio in the refugee camps in Jordan. I would imagine that if I was that parent, the first thing I would do is I'd run my kids over to the doctor and say, give them their polio immunization. And I know that this is happening, just if you don't know, it actually is happening all over Europe right now, as families who assumed that they were just fine are being affected by forces they never thought about and never considered. We're really proud of our service above self motto. But what I would suggest or ask you to think about is whether, harkening back to a classic movie in the American genre, whether a degree of greed is good, whether being selfless is really the only way that we can go through life. Because the basic instinct of all human beings is self-preservation, like it or not. And every one of you sitting in this room is sitting here for a particular reason. Some of you were suckered into it, yellow tabs, right? Somebody just made you come in. Some of you actually wanted to do it. But the reality is the vast majority of people who join Rotary do join initially, at least, for themselves. I'm a weirdo, I know it. I actually joined because I wanted to focus my philanthropic efforts into an organization. After years of Army, i.e. conflict, I wanted to be in an organization that understood local and international community, and Rotary was a great resource for me. Club was really secondary to me, something I've grown into and grown to love. But the reality is that I focus on foundation. The vast majority of people who join Rotary join for club, fellowship, community of the community in which they live. You know that your club spends $17,000 a year just to be Rotarians? Think about if you were the Good Boys and the Good Girls Club of Manhattan, Kansas, and you could spend the $17,000 here locally, but you had no impact on the world. Would you be better off? Would Manhattan be better off? I would suggest to you that you would not be. Because the reality is that things outside of your local community are always going to affect you. Whether it's race situations over in Kansas City, Missouri, or it's other situations that you're going to run into that are right across the wrong side of the tracks here in town. Whether it's a disease that comes over from Africa. All kinds of forces that are foreign to your local community affect you. And the reality is that we have to look at the selfish version of Rotary as well. How many of you have been leaders of this club? Presidents or any form of board members or anything else? Quite a few, I hope. Did you learn anything? Are you a better public speaker now than you were the day that you joined Rotary? Did you learn how to deal with the guy that always comes up and tells you how much lunch was horrible? You figured out how to translate that into being a better employer or a better supervisor or maybe just a better father or wife? If you look at your life, the things that you get out of Rotary aren't always obvious. Think of the things that would come from your child joining you on a service project. All you do is you go work and you come back and you keep living your life. You don't think that child doesn't look at you and see the service that you're conducting with in your community, and you miss the whole point. So when we look at things within the selfish side of Rotary, it's not bad. Because the things that we want to look at that affect us are, we can bring into a greater good effort. There's a great little quote that I picked up on. This is way too recent ago. I wish I would have learned it a long time ago. It's don't let the urgent overcome the important. Think about it. Don't let the urgent overcome the important. I bet you the vast majority of you have a smartphone in your pocket. Constantly beeping at you, vibrating, telling you what happened in New York, telling you what's happening overseas, telling you the picture of your friends or whatever else is going on. All of these things are demanding your instant attention. The very concept of Twitter and texting and other social media structures is now. There's not a whole lot of later associated with them. Even the concept of, the most popular application for 40s and 50-year-olds in the world, Facebook, right? I mean, it's because you don't even use it. The reality is that if you wait 3 days on Facebook, it's so far down in the chain you'll never even see it again, right? So the things that we see that are constantly being blinded and shoved in our face is the urgency. But the fact of the matter is we have to focus and keep our minds on the important. The elimination of polio, it's been estimated, the elimination of polio from the world is going to save almost $10 billion over the next decade in the developing world. That's money that can be put into so many other things. $10 billion. We look at the district, 5710 here in northeastern Kansas, and when we focus on that 2,500 people last year gave $420,000 to the Rotary Foundation. That's some pretty good stuff, right? You were a great part of that. Thank you. A lot of that went to polio. But a lot of the other money went to what's called the annual fund. If you're not intimately familiar with the Rotary structure, then congratulations, you've been able to get by this far without actually immersing yourself into the complexity, if you will, of the foundation. But the reality is that whatever money you give right now is going to show back up 3 years pro rata to what this club gave. And it comes in the form of a district grant. And as Betty's familiar, there's also other elements within the Rotary Foundation that are over and above all the district grants things, such as Peace Scholars Bill and other scholarship opportunities, many of which have come out of people that are here in Manhattan. All of these monies are only made possible because of giving to the Rotary Foundation. But I'll tell you that the biggest issue when it comes to all of Rotary is the ask. And it's your fault. If you don't ask for the money, i.e. write a grant, and come on, I'm in a university town. I know you all know how to write grants. If you don't ask for the money won't be given to you. I have $140,000 sitting up in our what's called World Fund account. And I'm just waiting for a Rotarian to write a grant to go do something somewhere. That's a lot of money, right? Well, it's not. There's over $100 million sitting worldwide in Rotary Club and district accounts, sitting stagnant because Rotarians are not writing grants. So, let's think about how we can make an impact. As we go through our daily lives and we think about the important versus the urgent, think about the other angle of things. And some of you might have heard this before, so I apologize if I'll bore you on this again. But let's look at polio for 1 second. Let's look at selfishness. If you think that Bill Gates was sitting around in a Redmond, Washington Starbucks and just happened to see a guy with a Rotary pen and said, you know what, buddy, I'm going to give you a few $100 million to go cure polio, you're crazy. That's just not the way things work. Would it shock you if I tell you that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation are selfish? Yeah, right. Doesn't make any sense. They give away lots of money, right? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has engaged Rotary because they need our delivery system that we have set up to the Polio Plus system. We are the only organization in the world that has demonstrated the ability to do a worldwide campaign to eliminate a disease. And in 1985, when we started this campaign, there were 350,000 kids a year getting polio. You might want to guess at how many kids have gotten polio thus far in 2015? 47. You know the beauty of polio compared to Ebola and all kinds of other nasty diseases that are out there in the world? It must live in the stomach of a human being. That's where it exists. I'm sure there's some kind of federal government program out there that tells me otherwise, but nonetheless, that is where it exists within nature. So the beauty is once those 47, their affected systems are actually cured of that deadly disease, and we're able to get into the areas that are very difficult to get into. So only 2 endemic countries are still out there as Afghanistan and Pakistan. It's because we can't get into them. And you guys have probably seen the reports of what happens there sometimes. So as we go about our efforts, and we need to focus on the important, not the urgent, what we need to do is we need to recognize how close we really are to eliminating this deadly disease. When that disease is eliminated and the focus of the world can move over to other delivery systems for other problems, be they economic or medical, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who has learned and is taking lessons on our system, just like all of the people that had no idea how to figure out how to deal with the Ebola structure as it was coursing through Africa last year, you know where they focused? It wasn't that Rotary ran out and cured Ebola. But what they did is they used the Polio Plus infrastructure of National Immunization Days to actually go and figure out how to create quarantines and deal with the Ebola, diagnosing and quarantining folks from the Ebola structure. That's what the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation needs as well. They want our delivery system so once polio is cured, they can go out and focus on some of the other things that they want to do so they can piggyback off that network that we've established. So that's all really good stuff. Well, what I want to hit on real quick is, again, so that you understand the basic structures, and again, if you will, I'll bore the mechanics due to some of the yellow tabs we have here, of the Rotary Foundation, so that you understand why and how you give. Because most people, get an invoice and they flip a check over, based on that invoice, and they're not really sure why or what's going on. But I want to try to give you a few reasons why you want to give more. Because outside of your local comfort level, there are things that are going to affect you. Outside of things that, whether it's going to happen here, or quite frankly, if you ever choose to travel, you're going to run into things that you really never really imagined could happen. We're dealing with, just on Monday, we were dealing with a grant, a Rotarian in our district is looking to write. And one of the biggest things that we were talking about in this grant in Guatemala was the fact that whenever the Guatemalan Rotarians who must participate in the grant, come to the grant sites, they have to come with armed bodyguards, because otherwise, they have a tendency to kidnap Guatemalans more than they want the wrath of the Americans, coming down on them if Americans are kidnapped. So we can go there just fine. But it's the Guatemalan Rotarians that actually have to bring armed bodyguards whenever they actually go to project sites. Kind of crazy stuff. But if we look at the mechanics of the Rotary Foundation, that's a bit of a distraction, sorry. If you look at the mechanics of the Rotary Foundation, we have three basic places to give. On one side, we have the endowment fund that used to be called the permanent fund, for those of you who've been around a while. And those are the really big gifts, okay? So if you're going to give a lot of money, or an estate, codicil, will, some kind of a gift upon death, that's probably going to head off with the endowment fund. And the interest that bleeds off that endowment fund every year, that gets kicked over into what's called the annual fund, along with your gifts. That annual fund is where we send all of the money that is associated with, like Bob's Paul Harris Fellow. Okay? So Paul Harris Fellows, that money, a lot of people call it the Paul Harris Fellow money, that all goes in the annual fund. And that's the money that bakes for 3 years, and then kicks back to us 3 years later for us to be able to spend along with matching grants with the Rotary Foundation. And then, of course, the third element is polio, and everybody's pretty familiar with that, hopefully, at this time. So when you look at the areas to which to give, really think about the fact of where we live. As some of you maybe heard say a few years ago, this might sound a little corny, but the fact of the matter is we live in Xanadu. We live, if you haven't figured it out yet, we live in a bubble. This is not the real world, people. We live in an amazing place, irregardless of the oils. They make it even more amazing. When you travel outside and you actually experience much of the way the rest of the world lives, you'll understand a little better about the fact that you just live in just such an amazing, close to utopia that can be created by humans, given the fact that we have to live in it, with all of our flaws. So, yes, I think I just lost my train of thought, but anyway, it was fun for me for a moment. Look at when you go through your day-to-day activities, and you think about that for $8.33 a month, you can become a sustaining member of the Rotary Foundation, giving $100 a year. Or if you really want to stretch, those of you, and most of you are probably capable thereof, at $83.33 a month, you can become a member of the Paul Harris Society at $1,000 a year. Think about the impact to your daily life if you had $83.33 removed out of your checking account on your credit card every single month using the Rotary Direct structure that automatically withdraws that. Would you notice? Maybe some months more than others. But the vast majority of us also have to look at, from the endowment fund structure of the $1,000 in your will as a codicil or in your insurance program would make you a benefactor, and $10,000 makes you a member of the Bequest Society. Everybody's got to coordinate this, of course, within their own household, but the vast majority of people who live in a first world nation like ours with the expenses and the insurances that we offer, if you think of the cost of $10,000 of insurance, you break that down to whatever plan that you have now, that shit's probably around $12 a year. So just think about that for a while, and how that money could benefit others down the road. So, any questions for me? And I know about the banquet. You sure want to talk about the banquet? They've already talked about the banquet. Okay, my wife likes to whisper at me, so sometimes it works. But the next Saturday, not this one, but the following, 14th, we have the annual foundation banquet, of which the Manhattan Club has not attended very well. Come on now, folks. You can carpool. There are minivans and everything.
It's for the hotel.
Yes, we'll get you a nice little rate at the hotel, so you can stay down at the Sheraton if you wish. Overland Park. And we will apologize for, we have had it in Overland Park for a long time now. We tried it we tried shifting it to a bit to the west in earlier years, but the simple fact of the matter is we weren't getting attendance then either. So we need a few Manhattan folks to show up, wear purple, it's fine, we'll know who you are then, and that'll demonstrate to us that we should maybe be more motivated, right, to shift these things out a little bit further. But we need to we want to try to get as much involvement here on the western end of the district as sometimes we get on the eastern end for some events like that. So, what am I doing? I'm good. Yeah, we're fine. So, and as my wife often likes to remind me, since she tells me she has my one feeling, you can ask me hard questions, really. It's not going to hit me too hard. So, any questions about either the way your grants work or how the Rotary Foundation operates? And it is 1,300 hours, as Betty likes to tell me. All right, you don't want to get yelled at either. All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.